everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crazy 4. The next few videos will be part of a series where I interview successful individuals for us to learn about the reasons behind their success.
Thank you. So before we get started, could you just give some context on your role and your background?
Sure. I'm Virginia. I currently lead the account management team for APAC for a payments company called Adyen, or a payment service provider. Before that, I've worked across a number of companies, always in tech, across product, partnerships, and now in a commercial role. I started off, I'm originally from the US, but now I've been in Asia for 15 years. Previous to Adyen, I was at Facebook Meta for 4 years before that, looking after their developer partnerships team for APAC.
Okay, so like you would say since the beginning of your journey, you'd been in the tech industry or field.
Yes, I actually majored in computer science.
Oh.
I actually started off like in very much more in product at Microsoft. So I was at Microsoft in Redmond,
Mhm.
and then I joined a small startup in San Francisco called Ingenio, which is now part of AT&T. And then I moved to Yahoo a long time ago. From Yahoo, I was at eBay and then PayPal. And PayPal, I left PayPal and I did a small payment startup called PaySense.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I've always been in tech across a few different companies, continents, and roles.
What motivated you to join tech?
Uh, when I first went to college, I graduated in 2002, so I'm a bit older than all of you. Um, I actually started off as an economics and international relations major. That was at that point, computer science wasn't like I started college in 1998. But one day, honestly, a friend of mine said, let's try this computer science thing for fun, because that was like the first .com bubble. And I tried my first computer science class and I loved it. I loved the thinking, the problem solving. So I switched to computer science and I've been in tech ever since.
Fair enough. Um, so throughout all these years, what are some challenges or hurdles that you had to cross?
I think when I was earlier on in my career, especially when I was working more in like a technical role, definitely when I first graduated from college and I joined Microsoft as a PM in Redmond, that was when there were very few, and I think there's still just a lack of women in tech. So you
Mm-hmm.
have people who I was like, you'd be like the only woman in a meeting. You have people ask like, so you have a computer science degree? Like, there's a lot of having to prove yourself. And what I've now learned the term is microaggressions of people who kind of doubt who you are and your capabilities when you walk into a room.
Yeah. So over the years, have you noticed a change in how you've been treated due to your identity, like from the start to like now?
Well, I've also now moved into more of a commercial role where there's a lot more gender balance. So I
Yeah.
don't notice it as much. I'm just not as like I'm not it's just become less of a problem because I'm not on the technical side anymore, but I do notice that on the technical side there's still a lack of women, right?
So while you were at the technical side and you faced like all these hurdles just because of your identity, what you do to overcome them?
I mean, I think the first step is really just acknowledging that it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise you can really let it affect your own personal confidence. So the first part is just acknowledge that. So if you know it's happening, then you can that's the only way you can actually ignore it or let it not bother you. So I think a lot of it was acknowledging that was happening. I really love the women in tech community. There's my favorite Facebook group is Moms in Tech. So I also think that it's about building those communities of people who are in the same boat as you and support each other that way.
Yeah.
And as I've grown in my career, when I was at Facebook, I was actually the executive sponsor for the Women at Group for Singapore. So it's really now for me about how can I coach, mentor, and work with younger women to help them like identify what they want to do, how to get better at talking about what they do. And I think that's in helping other people, you could also help yourself.
I agree. So since you have so much experience, what are some best practices that you've observed throughout your career?
In terms of,
Just practices as in like rules that you go by, maybe for yourself.
um, I don't know if I have rules that I go by specifically, but I think it's more around
Or you recommend for others when they're like getting started.
find great people to work with, and for who you work with makes the biggest difference in your experience. That's why culture matters. That's why companies, if you find someone great to work for who you can trust, makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Keep learning. I do think that over time, as you build your own confidence and knowledge base, like you build confidence through competence, right? So push yourself to keep learning, and find your community. Like
Yeah.
for me, I definitely have a few women who are also now we've all done relatively well in our careers, but we actually are able to call each other when we have a problem or when we doubt ourselves, or just to meet up and have that community of people who are going to be your supporters, your shoulders to cry on.
Yeah, so these are more women that are already in the industry. Do you have any techniques or advice that can encourage more female participation in tech or any other space for that matter?
I'd love to hear about that from you. Yeah, I know you're someone who's very interested in tech. What
I'm
made you
not a
interested
tech
in tech?
girl. I'm not a tech girl.
Really?
No, I'm more econ finance. I think that's why my YouTube channel is also related to that. Yeah. It started off with crypto because I was like, that's what I was focusing on earlier. And then I like, decided to move into like other things. That was just one bit of it.
Okay. But your sister is in tech.
My sister is in tech.
Got it. Okay. Um, I do think a lot of it is around how do we build inclusive work environments? How do we help girls feel confident to even enter STEM and math fields when they're young? But I don't have a great answer. It's actually a question that I ask. That's why I'm like, I want to ask you, because what would help someone like you change, like feel comfortable in it? Because
Yeah.
I don't know how to, like, it's a problem that we talk about a lot, and it starts at the funnel is already quite narrow by the time you look at university, right? Like, how do we actually encourage this early on? I also have a 2-year-old daughter now, and I think about this for her because already somehow she came back to school and she was like, this is what girls wear, this is what boys wear. And somehow already she's differentiating the two so strongly.
I think it just starts in school. It's okay. It's better in obviously countries like Singapore, but before I was living in India and there it was like a lot more like girls, boys. I don't know if that's just because I was young,
Really?
but I feel like India is just like male superiority and they just love men. So I think it
Yeah,
also,
I don't know. Like I've realized now that it starts so early, and I don't know, maybe you might have to edit this out later, but part of what I actually think helped me, which is not any way propaganda for communism, is the fact that I grew up in China in the 80s, where like Chinese as a language is gender neutral. And even when you grew up as a girl, like everyone wore like very plain clothes. There were no stay-at-home moms. Everybody worked. Everyone was good at math. There was no concept of like girls are not good at math and boys are. Like everyone's good at math. You're Chinese, you're good at math. And I grew up for the first 10 years of my life, never feeling like, at least maybe in my own setting, that there was a difference. And I think that helped me. But now I see how so many women and young girls are kind of pigeonholed very early on. And I understand we cannot go back to like communist China, but like, how do we like help people find their identity, but in a way that also means that it's not you're in one box or the other, right?
yeah, I'm surprised you said because even India is like China in terms of like everyone's good at math, but then that's when they're younger. The second they grow up, all women used to become stay-at-home moms, and then the dads would go at work, even if
Well, I
they were.
mean, when I grew up, we didn't have stay-at-home moms. Everybody worked. So like, because that was never a thing for me, I think I just,
Yeah.
my foundation didn't have this question mark.
That's fair, yeah. Do you have any other advice you would like to give to generally young people breaking into tech or, well, their careers?
People say like follow your dreams, do what you love. I'm not a huge, I mean, also very practical. I think focus on learning,
Yeah.
like always optimize for learning.
That
Whatever, like if and whatever you have an option to do something where you're going to learn more, optimize for that.
yeah.
You never know what's going to be the thing that changes your life trajectory. I guess for me, the two things that probably changed it the most was taking a computer science class for fun because I wanted to learn something new and discovering something that I really loved. And I also decided to move to Asia on somewhat of a whim because I grew up in the Bay Area. I was working in tech in the Bay Area and I wanted to try something new. And I think optimizing for experiences where you can really broaden your mind, try something new and learn, over the long run, helps you build that foundation.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Thank you. That is all I needed from you.
Hope that was helpful.